It is day one, and we're excited because everybody's here. Just loading the bus. We have a gorgeous day. There's not a cloud in the sky. The sun is shining, and really excited to start off at Williamsburg because that's kind of the beginning of American history. So it's a great place to start, and I just think we'll have a really fun time.
It's going to be an adventure, something different from what we've had before. I mean, it's still the history and the literature combined, but moving to the East Coast to places that Sarah and I, we've not been to all of the places that we're going to, so it's going to be an adventure for us as well.
The first stop on the tour was Colonial Williamsburg. Outfitted with good maps, the tour was officially underway. Colonial Williamsburg is restored to its pre-independence look, not only in the architecture, but the people as well. The goal is to be completely authentic, and it is, for the most part. Taverns played a large role in colonial lifestyle, and that seems like a good reason to visit one for lunch.
When you came to a tavern in 18th century Virginia, the first room that you came into was the public rooms, where we get the word pub from today, and that was mostly men. Now, it was a place where men would come to have a simple meal and a drink and to discuss business, get news from people that were traveling from outside of Williamsburg, discuss politics, and these were all subjects that were considered by mutual consent to be unsuitable topics for conversation with ladies. And there weren't that many women traveling at this time anyway.
The fence pretty well hides, at least.
Williamsburg is a working exhibit, so for visitors, the learning is on display.
It's only those in the top 5% who can afford to wear wigs. So you'll find a wig is a luxury item, a status symbol, places you up there at the top of the pile and lets people know that you're doing very well indeed. Gentlemen, I'm your barber. I have my shaving bowl here. You hold the bowl to the chin. That's what this notch is for. I will take my fine white or Bristol soap. I will lather your face, get out my straight edge razor, shave your face for you, gentlemen. I'm your barber. So, any hair need?
A group tour covered the entire area, so you had to keep up. The group leader, Valerie, did an excellent job of explaining how the government of colonial Virginia operated in the House of Burgesses, one of the many historical buildings under constant care and upkeep at Williamsburg. The tour engages visitors, providing a more hands-on learning experience. The jail at Williamsburg was one of many stops, but there was still a lot to see, so the group needed to keep on moving. The governor's mansion is the most prominent building in Williamsburg, and was the place of great opulence and a showing of strength. The many rooms of the building entertained guests for a variety of occasions and were all very grand indeed. The tour culminated through the palace's garden and back to central Williamsburg, where a demonstration of American independence was on display.
We have grown together, men, as brothers in arms. We have ignited the flame of a cause that has captured the eyes and ears of this world around. His Excellency General Washington has now given the command that we will cover the 11 miles of York, where we shall besiege Lord Cornwallis. And good people, When we march back through this city, we will carry that paunchy Sassenach flag with us! Hip, hip, hooray!
And at the end of the day, a tavern. This is colonial America after all.
Now from France we do get brandy, from Jamaica comes rum, sweet oranges and lemons from Portugal come. But stout and hard cider are England's control. Bring me the punch ladle, I'll fathom the pole. I'll fathom the pole. I'll fathom the pole. Bring me the punch ladle, I'll fathom the pole.
It's a wonderful, wonderful vacation for me, and with Williamsburg and the visitation there and all that we got to see and the history that was reviewed was just fascinating. And if this tour stopped right now, it would have been worth the money. It's just exciting to me. And I'm getting to the age where lots of things don't excite me.
What's also exciting is that this tour brings to Peru State College a unique learning and outreach experience.
It gives students and alumni and friends of the college a great opportunity to learn and be a part of a really fun experience. We focus a lot on engaged learning at the college, which is doing relevant, real things, and this is just a tremendous opportunity. And then these professors bring back all these experiences to the classroom, which is good for our students.
Not a minute is wasted, not a minute. I'm glad I'm not taking this for credit.
The first stop on day 2 was Monticello, the home of Thomas Jefferson. Its remote location near Charlottesville, Virginia means a hike is needed to reach the home and the family cemetery. The grounds at Monticello reflect Jefferson's bond with those who lived off the land. The scenery is breathtaking, and it's no wonder Jefferson chose this spot for his home.
First, I'd like to welcome you all to Monticello. We are very excited to have you here today, and I do hope you enjoy your visit. In just a few moments, you will be going inside of Mr. Jefferson's original home. This home is over 200 years old, so we would like you all to keep that in mind as you go through it today.
I want to take a moment to talk about how well preserved the house is. About 90% of the house is original, 2/3 of the objects inside, as well as even 1/3 of the glass.
Preservation of Monticello is evident. The architecture is completely unique, reflecting the mind and imagination of one of America's most interesting presidents. The next stop was to the home of another American president, James Madison. His home, Montpelier, was a family home, and like Monticello, stays maintained and in the condition of Madison's era.
You're going to visit this afternoon the home of James and Dolly Madison, our 4th president, the father of the Constitution, and late in life here at Montpelier, the sage of Montpelier. And the home is in the process of being restored to the time period that James and Dolly retire from the presidency in 1817. So all the colors you see inside and outside of the house are all original.
The Blue Ridge Mountains form a perfect backdrop to Montpelier, a name inspired by a French villa in similar surroundings.
Indicating how much he enjoyed staying here and that it reminded him of a small town he had visited in France called Montpelier. Madison reads the letters. What a wonderful sounding name. I think I will call this the English pronunciation Montpelier. That's where the name came from. I'll bet you think I did make that up, right?
One thing is certain, the grounds make a great place for a group photo.
Down. All right, turn left, everybody say Madison.
The day ended with a long drive to northern destinations. The drive was great for conversation or just looking out the window. In the sure hands of our driver, James, the miles clicked by as the day faded on. Next up, Philadelphia.
We were really impressed with the trip so far. Williamsburg is the biggest surprise so far. We were impressed with the people, with what we got to see, with the tour guides especially. Wonderful trip so far.
The pleasure of coming on a trip like this is the people you meet, the opportunities to share memories with people from different walks of life who have the same kinds of interests, and that Sarah and Dan are so open to everyone. And they know a lot. They're willing to share it in the morning, the afternoon, the evening. It's not like they're only talking to you about a particular topic and have 3 paragraphs prepared for this particular building or this particular person.
The first stop was the Philadelphia home of Edgar Allan Poe. The home itself looks normal, apart from the raven in the front room gift shop. But that's all right. Gift shops are fun.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I entered, weak and weary.
The home is very sparsely furnished and has, quite appropriately, an eerie kind of feel about it. The group learned about Poe's more unusual stories and how the home itself provided, perhaps, the inspiration for some of his more macabre scenarios.
He wants to cover up his crime by hiding the corpse, and he thinks he's found the perfect place within the chimney support of his cellar. And that's what this is right over here. You can probably guess why it's called that, because it supports a chimney right up above us. And it's got bricks missing from the front of it, coincidentally, just like this one does. And as you can see, it's got a hollow cavity here. Perfect spot to hide a body, right? That's what he thinks. And so he figures after he puts it there and then layers bricks up here in the front of it, nobody will ever be any the wiser that there's actually a corpse behind these bricks.
The Raven seems, in comparison, relatively peaceful, considering all that must have been going on in the mind of Edgar Allan Poe. Across the river in Camden, New Jersey, is the home of another great American writer, Walt Whitman. It was here, both inside the home and in the quiet backyard, that Whitman's writing found form, and he became one of America's great poets. A few miles away, in an unremarkable part of Camden, is a quiet cemetery where Walt Whitman was laid to rest. It's peaceful here, much like the author, who served as a nurse for soldiers and was content on a quiet street in Camden, New Jersey. Of course, in Philadelphia, history is at every corner, and for most visitors, a tour of the city begins with a bell. Philadelphia really is the epicenter for the history of American independence, thanks to the events and people working in the most appropriately named Independence Hall. Philadelphia is home to not just the Declaration of Independence, but also the United States Constitution. An entire museum is dedicated to the U.S. Constitution and features live demonstrations, as well as the statue room, where the debates surrounding America's future are cast in metal. The display offers a look at the characters of independence, their debates and discussions, and they're also available for photos. Philadelphia, maybe America's most historically important city.
Philadelphia was just awesome. It was so exciting and inspiring to be where our founding fathers had been and to see what, from the seed, what they developed.
Yes, I'd never been to Philadelphia, and I really wanted to see Independence Hall, where all the great work was done, the great founding fathers. It was inspiring. And to tour with 2 professors who are proficient in these areas, it's a constant learning bonanza. It's wonderful.
Next stop, Boston, Massachusetts, the center of American Revolution, and a blend of old and new architecture, history, and just about anything else. The Freedom Tour might be the best way to see Boston's historical sites. They're led by locals who've been there.
We're on Boston Common, 44 to 48 acres of open land in the middle of our city that has never been built on. But before it became known as Boston Common, it was the pasture land of it.
The Granary Cemetery is a who's who of Boston heroes. Here you'll find John Hancock, buried under a not surprisingly large tombstone. Paul Revere is also here, as is another prominent figure in American rebel history, Samuel Adams. Also buried here are 5 individuals whose deaths might have played the largest part in starting the American Revolution. Those involved in an incident that took place in front of this very building. The Freedom Tour makes good time through the city, and it's the kind of tour that might work up a thirst. Problem solved.
Provide that nice aroma that's all over our hands now. Once that process is done, we're going to have a nice kind of balanced, sweet and bitter liquid. Not quite beer yet, like I said. We need to.
The Brew Tour is a demonstration of the science of brewing, and there's a lot involved.
So you guys can see that this is a kind of a nice, kind of deep roasted, kind of amberish color. That's going to provide the color in Boston lager.
There's a lot to know about brewing ingredients, taste for one, and then the smell of hops. There's also a visual element to knowing a good brew.
What ingredient are we smelling right
I suppose you could study your beer too well.
Hops, exactly. Remember what's all over your hand. So you smell your hand. Now smell your beer again. Now never do that in public again.
There might not be a more satisfied employee in all of Boston. He really wants you to learn. And where should you go to practice this newfound expertise in brew mastering? Where else? Next morning, a trip across the bay to the Charleston shipyard brought visitors to a true working American museum, the battleship the USS Constitution, also known as Old Ironsides. And as it reaches 250 years of age, it's still a commissioned U.S. Navy vessel.
So, oldest commissioned. As you can see, everyone here in uniform is an active duty member of the United States Navy, which means the ship is still commissioned.
Tours of the ship allow anyone to walk through history alongside contemporary sailors, all busy getting the ship ready for its 250th year celebration. A full tour means seeing all decks, which seem to keep going further and further down. And the lower the deck, the less the headroom until, well, let's hope we've reached the bottom. What makes the U.S. Constitution different is that unlike the people from 250 years ago, the ship is still here and lives on. The guns have gone silent, but it still sits in the shadows of Boston, with perhaps the same strength and attitude it had 250 years ago. That afternoon, the tour moved from history to literature in the nearby seaside town of Salem, in the home that made Nathaniel Hawthorne known to the world. Like Old Ironsides, the home is under constant maintenance and care. It has, after all, been around a while. The actual home has been moved in recent years to this location, as has been the home of Hawthorne's birth. Today they sit side by side, allowing visitors the chance to look into the early life of one of America's great authors. On the final day of the tour, a visit was made to perhaps one of the most dramatic places in American Revolutionary history, and the chance to get to know the unique soldiers who were there.
Many of the towns decided we need a more rapid response force. So not every town, but most towns asked for volunteers. If there was 100 men in the militia, they would ask for 25%. 25 of those men, the strongest, youngest, most willing to become Minutemen. And all that really meant was, in addition to their normal militia duties, is they would promise to bring their weapons, their musket, their hatchet, their tomahawk, with them, with some food and ammunition, wherever they were going. Most of them were farmers, but even if you were a blacksmith, you'd bring your weapon with you to work. And then when an alarm sounded, and in most towns it was just the church bell being rung a certain way, you would immediately, in a minute, stop what you were doing and proceed to a prearranged rally point.
The North Bridge is an unassuming structure that, without its connection to the American Revolution, would just be another small bridge in America's Northeast. But that's the way it is with history. You never know where it's going to happen. And as it turns out, this particular site is especially rich in American history. Just 100 yards away, following a trail along a stone wall, stands a home known as the Old Manse. In terms of American literature, this truly is the cradle.
The Old Manse is only a couple of 100 yards, if that far, from the North Bridge, where the Minutemen, the militia from this area, came down and engaged the British in April of 1775. So to have these kinds of connections and to be able to bring people here and to see these sorts of things is it's just a unique experience. I call Concord the ground zero of American literature, and it's because at one time in the 1840s, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Louisa May Alcott all lived in this small town, and I think at that time it was probably only a little over a couple thousand people. There's just a connection to this place, a connection to writers here, a connection to the history here that's hard to get in any other place.
Not only did these authors live here, but they're remembered in nearby Sleepy Hollow Cemetery in a section known as Author's Ridge. For those paying their respects, it's clear the influence these authors had on today's writers. For Thoreau, the area provided the setting for his works on nature and his views on man's connection with nature. No place is more associated with these ideas of Thoreau than nearby Walden Pond. The evening concluded in Concord with the trip's Last Supper. As expected, the meal and the company were second to none. It was the perfect setting for a final dinner as a group. The next morning, there was one last stop, the home of John Adams, America's second president.
So this is the house that John and Abigail Adams moved into after the American Revolution and after John's time abroad. They purchased this house sight unseen from London in 1788 in anticipation for what they thought would be John's retirement later that year. Obviously that didn't happen. He would go on to be our nation's first vice president and second president, but this was initially purchased as a retirement home.
The Boston area is teeming with historical sites and opportunities to learn about the beginnings of America and about those who made it happen. The tour could have gone on for days, but for now, it was time to say goodbye and go home. The tour was a true learning vacation, and for those connected with Peru State College, it's what education and learning are all about.
We're part of the alumni board, so we follow this more closely than other alums, but just to see the progress of the college, and now they're ranging out to do more and more of this kind of outreach with alumni and get students out into different parts of the country to experience things. You know, this is what a college is all about. And for so many years, we were just concerned with pure survival, and now it's time to have some fun.